Hello, everyone, and welcome to Very Cold Lasagna, the podcast bringing you all the filthy casual takes on the world of sports for you casual sports fans out there like you and me. I am your host, Dylan Lasagna. This is episode number 296, and in this episode, we're here to talk about my San Francisco 49ers and rounding out the week that was for the red and gold in their 2025 campaign. And so far, it's been a pretty mixed one, as well, as it has been in the last few seasons, whether it's been up or very down as it was last year. But so far, in my opinion, rather as it was this time last year, this year it's been pretty in the middle. I'd say it's been very neutral. There's been a lot of good, a lot of bad though, too. But so far, I'd say it's on a neutral playing field. So yeah, it's not been entirely bad, but then there's at least some positives that we can look on. So yeah, it's the 7th edition of our 49ers weekly roundup. As in this one, we're here to talk about the last week that was, that being their Sunday night matchup against the Atlanta Falcons. We're going to give you my little thoughts and takeaways from that matchup as they now look ahead to the start of their 2-game road trip that begins in Houston in week 8 against the Texans, an early morning matchup over there. And yeah, that begins a 2-game road trip before they head back home 2 weeks later. Before we talk about our roundup for my 49ers, make sure to follow the Very Cold Lasagna podcast on social media on Twitter/X and Instagram at Very Cold Lasagna. And if you're listening to this podcast on the audio side of things, make sure you rate and review the show, whether you're listening to this on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. And if you're watching this on YouTube, make sure to smash the subscribe button. And if you're not subscribed, what the hell are you waiting for? Hit that subscribe button, turn on the notification bell so you can listen to all my filthy casual takes that I'm bringing to you, and you. But anyway, hit the subscribe button and tap the notification bell for new podcast episodes, extra takes, all the stuff I bring to you here on Very Cold Lasagna. And hit the like button so it can reach out to all new and veteran filthy casual listeners. And comment down below on your takes on what I'm bringing to you all. What at the topic at hand, that being my San Francisco 49ers and the things that have happened in the past week, that being in week 7, and the upcoming week, that being week 8. And as always, share this with your friends, share this with your neighbors, and share with whoever is around you and all that good stuff. So that being said, let's talk about my San Francisco 49ers and how they did this past Sunday night under the bright lights against the Atlanta Falcons. And yeah, the big story going into this game was how the 49ers were going to do now that they had lost their defensive leader and just the leader as a whole for the team in Fred Warner. Fred Warner, in case you didn't know, last week, or I guess you can use in NFL terms, 2 weeks ago against Tampa Bay in Tampa, they lost Fred Warner to a severe ankle injury that's going to keep him out for the season. And who knows how long beyond that. But anyway, they lost Fred Warner to a severe ankle injury that's going to keep him out for the regular season and maybe beyond that. So yeah, he's not going to be there, which depletes the 49ers defense even more because, yeah, Nick Bosa is not there in the front four with the torn ACL. So there were a lot of questions about how the 49ers would do against an Atlanta Falcons team that was just coming off a win against the Buffalo Bills. And they stifled Josh Allen, that offense, surprisingly. And they ran roughshod on the Bills by jumping out to a 21-0 lead very early in that game. And it was a lead that they never relinquished in that game on Monday night. But at least for the advantage for San Francisco going into that game was that they had an extra day of advantage for that Sunday nighter. So I guess that was some advantage. So again, the big story was, though, their defense. How is that defense going to do now that Fred Warner was not there in any capacity? I mean, I guess at least he was there, just not in a playing capacity when it came to the actual game. So let's look at their defense. How did they do? Well, the opening drive was kind of promising. They quickly got Atlanta and Michael Penix off the field very quickly, but then they decided to go on a very long expedition. They allowed Atlanta to go on this offensive drive on their second offensive drive that expanded way into the second quarter. Yeah, this is a very long, very methodical drive that both teams had to endure into the second quarter. Along the way, defensively, they suddenly lost Tate Bethune, the guy that's replacing Fred Warner, getting the play calls through Robert Saleh and what is termed as the green dot guy. And yeah, he was gone for some reason. Like Mike Tirico and Chris Collins were pointing out that he's not there. And Curtis Robinson, who didn't play any kind of snaps at any point in the season so far, he had to replace him. And he was not exactly a great improvement. But even during that point, Tate Bethune wasn't so far not really showing much quite yet. But he managed to come back. And eventually over time, we did see some things happen for Tate Bethune. So yeah, but during that very long drive, Michael Penix Jr. was making this defense his bitches all throughout. He didn't even have to do any big highlight plays. As you saw in the last Sunday night game from the Lions and the Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes didn't really have to do all that much. Just short check down chunk plays, and his supporting cast, they ran through it. It was like yards after catch, and then they just tried to evade the defender. That was basically all that Atlanta was doing, simply in comparison with this 49ers defense that's so beaten up and also so inexperienced. Michael Penix Jr., he methodically drove this defense down the field without any major big highlight plays alongside Bijan Robinson. A case in point was Michael Penix Jr. turning a negative holding penalty that put them at 1st and 20 into a new set of downs, like in the blink of an eye, just like that. But as they got closer to the red zone, the defense was at least very fortunate to finally sack Michael Penix Jr. And hold that offense to a field goal. So after what felt like a 10-minute long drive, it was all for a field goal. So that was something. That was, I guess you could consider a half success for the 49ers. And they got a sack out of it after the pass rush remembered that it was supposed to be a pass rush. And the defense, it kind of, I guess you could say it's somewhat improved later on, despite continued lapses in coverage. They also lost Renardo Green, one of their top two corners, to a toe injury. And I think also Yamador Lenore also suffered an injury later on. But it still managed to keep the Falcons from truly doing any major damage other than a third quarter red zone touchdown from Michael Penix and Bijan. But mainly that was because the special teams fucked up again for the 49ers. And a lot of it, like for this defense, was thanks to Bryce Huff, who was having a big game, pressuring Michael Penix Jr. a lot. And in the second quarter, he had a strip sack and gave the 49ers the ball, which set up their own field goal. And Tate Bethune, who rebounded from a slow start and ended his night with 10 key tackles. So yeah, overall, I say it was a good starting debut, being the green dot guy for Bethune. So yeah, overall, this defense, I'd say it was a slow start for them overall, but yeah, they didn't let the Falcons, who were riding a high on a 2-game winning streak, they didn't do a lot of damage in this one. And the 49ers defense, they held up. They bottled up that Falcons defense under the bright lights. Meanwhile, looking at things offensively for this 49ers team, George Kittle came back for this one after being on IR a short term. He didn't play last week because they wanted to make sure George Kittle was healthy. This was the exact timeline that he was going to return for this one. And George Kittle's return, while he didn't have any catches, no receptions, he was targeted twice, but he greatly helped out the run game. as it allowed much more open holes for Christian McCaffrey, and which was a great emphasis in this game, Christian McCaffrey that being. And yeah, the Christian McCaffrey run game, it had its best game all season. This was even with losing starting center Jake Brendel to a hammy injury during their own long ass drive in the second quarter. So yeah, the backup center Matt Hennessy. No, I'm not talking about Matt having his alcohol ready to go, like providing those shots, Hennessy. He had to fill in for the rest of the way, and honestly, I gotta say, Matt Hennessy, sponsored by some Hennessy, he actually did much better than Jake Brendel did all season. And I guess he's ready for the moment. He did much better in both run and pass blocking. So it was surprising to see a backup center do much better than the starting center in Jake Brendel. Progress, I guess you could say. I mean, now granted, the rest of the interior offensive line is still buns. That being Connor Colby and Dominic Pooney. But they actually did a very solid job on Sunday night. I think they only sacked Mac Jones like 2-3 times, but in terms of run blocking, this was actually a very efficient night. I mean, yeah. Other than that, it was just basically the Mac Jones and Christian McCaffrey show, because Mac Jones and Christian McCaffrey were just playing pass to each other and hand off to each other all night. Christian McCaffrey was running over the Falcons defense both on the ground and in the air. So that was just basically the game plan all night long. So Kyle Shanahan was just basically like, okay, this is clearly working, and Atlanta's not making any adjustments to stop this. So why if it ain't broke, don't fix it. That's pretty much like Kyle Shanahan's mindset. So why deviate from that? And Mac Jones, I guess he clearly understood the assignment too. So he continually went to Christian McCaffrey, especially given that a certain receiver we're going to be talking about, he clearly still has some trust issues with Mac Jones. Mac Jones himself, he played decent after a backbreaker performance last week in Tampa. So it was a little bit of a bounce back performance, although he and the passing game were very quiet. I mean, aside from Christian McCaffrey passing the ball a lot to Christian McCaffrey, but Mac Jones himself, he made a key run in the red zone to help CMC convert a first down very late in the fourth quarter, which set up the go-ahead touchdown to eventually win the game. So overall, for the 49ers, they, for now, I guess you could say for now, I was proven wrong about this team. And I will say for the fact that I mentioned this on Twitter, and I mentioned this last week in my weekly roundup for this team. Here's the key thing. While they did prove me wrong in this one, they did prove me wrong with how beaten up their defense was. I will still kind of stand on this part. Sure, their season's not over yet. But again, this is still barring a long shot, barring a miracle. It's not over when it's over, but still, it's barring a long shot with Fred Warner gone. And again, not being negative, it's just being kind of realistic. If that makes any sense to you all, go check out my tweet on Twitter, if you know what I mean, from a couple weeks ago. So I will give the Niners credit for this. Almost everyone that had to replace the injured folks like Fred Warner, Nick Bosa, so far they've been stepping up to the plate. Either solid, decent, or very well, at least defensively. But offensively, there's still work to be done, especially from a certain receiver by the name of Juwan Jennings. And I think it's time to have some conversations about this guy, Juwan Jennings. Now, look, Juwan Jennings has done good things for this 49ers team. He's often been known as third and Juwan, converting a lot of third downs for this team when the Niners needed him the most. And I get it. Especially during the season, like the regular season, he's been battling and playing through several injuries that has been keeping him off the field. And when he is on the field, he's not there often. But I hate to say it, he's been mostly a non-factor even when he is on the field. And he's honestly been a detriment. I hate to say it. He hasn't gotten on the same page with Mac Jones and even Brock Purdy when he's played in the games that either quarterback or himself has played. Especially in this game when Mac Jones tried to go to Jennings, but Jennings wasn't ready for the ball, and he couldn't catch the ball, and that led to Caden Ellis, the linebacker for Atlanta, to intercept it. That was on Jauan Jennings. He was supposed to be online with the ball with Mac Jones, and again, still having those trust issues. So, what am I trying to say? What am I trying to say about Jauan Jennings? It's like this has been going on for almost a month now. This has been going on for almost a month. Again, it's whether it's with Brock Purdy, like in the Jaguars game when Purdy returned, and he was trying to establish something with Jauan Jennings, but then that led to a pick. And here we go with the Atlanta Falcon game when Mac Jones tried to fit the ball to Jauan, got intercepted again. I'm at the point with Jauan Jennings where if the 49ers put him in a trade package before the trade deadline to go and get an edge rusher for a team that needs a receiver, I wouldn't hate it. I wouldn't hate it. Given that Kendrick Bourne is becoming that de facto number 2 receiver, especially given that whenever we get Jacob Counting back, Brandon Ayuk back, and hopefully Ricky Pearsall back, because I don't know what the hell is going on with him. I mean, now you got George Kittle back, and maybe perhaps even Jordan Watkins if Kyle Shanahan can finally make him active on game day. Where does Jauan Jennings fit on this team? And don't forget, Jauan Jennings decided to do all this shenanigans in training camp, right before training camp. Going up to Kyle and John saying, "Hey, can I have a contract extension, please?" Literally the week before training camp. Did we not forget about this? I was whining about this. I was very vocal and critical of Jauan about this during my team previews about this. In the portion before I got into the team previews of what was it, the AFC South or NFC South portion, in my training camp notes, I was very vocal about Jauan doing this bullshit. And I'm still very vocal about that. It's a guy that wants an extension, and this was the wrong timing to do it. So, if he were to get traded for a team that needs a key need, like an edge rusher, maybe even 2 edge rushers, I wouldn't mind him and a day 2 or 3 pick to be shipped off. I wouldn't mind that. We want to look at the Atlanta Falcons side of things before we get into our preview to Week 8. For the Atlanta Falcons, their offense carried some of the momentum from the last 2 games against the Commanders and the Bills, but it just didn't translate fully on the road. Michael Penix Jr. either had trouble finding his guys, or Bijan Robinson was cut short on key downs. Now, like I said, on the 49ers side of things, the Falcons went on a very long drive. They were pretty methodical on some key plays, but when it came to that red zone 3rd down where they needed to convert and they were trying to get a touchdown, Michael Penix just held onto the ball for a little too long and he got sacked. And they ended up just going for the field goal. And then they got stripped. Michael Penix got strip sacked on the next possession that they had the ball. And that led to a touchdown on the receiving end. So they managed to cut the lead much later in the game with a better opening possession to start the second half. But again, they just couldn't fully finish drives to at least put some pressure on the 49ers offense. They couldn't really make this a game. And then, yeah, like I said, they made 2 critical errors, if not more than that, because I lost count. Like I said, the strip sack from Bryce Huff to Michael Penix. And then when they were on their last gasp in the final moments of the game, they had to convert a 4th down, and they had every opportunity to convert this 4th down. But Drake London, he dropped the catch from Michael Penix, and while it was well guarded by Diamador Lenore, Drake London just simply dropped it. And Drake London, he had a quiet night on this game, and which led to Michael Penix going to Darnell Mooney a lot in this one. Defensively, they struggled against Christian McCaffrey all night because they lost Divine Diablo, their top linebacker, early to a forearm injury, which left a major hole in the run defense, and especially in the middle of the mid-range passing defense, which, while the Niners defense, they didn't, not the defense, their offense, they didn't go to a lot of receivers, just mainly to McCaffrey. It still left a lot of holes that Mac Jones and Christian McCaffrey can pick on. So overall, the Falcons, they showed a good amount of the good that they had in the last 2 games, but it's just a matter of a failure to fully execute in this game outside of the touchdown from Bijan to cut into the deficit. I think it was 13-10 when it was shortly after halftime. So for the Falcons, as the midway point nears in 2 weeks, they have to learn how to translate their home success against the Commanders and the Bills on the road. They just can't simply rely on, having all these feel-good wins against last year's playoff contenders, because don't get me wrong, those were 2 quality wins, but they have to start translating that on the road, like they did at home, because on the road it's a much different animal. They can't play like they did against the Vikings, the Panthers, and now against the 49ers. Because if they want it to be taken seriously, if they want to try and hope for at least a playoff spot at minimum, they can't be playing like this. And now you gotta be a concern with an injury to Michael Penix. Apparently, it's like a bone bruise, from what I read on Twitter by Adam Schefter. But yeah, it's a bone bruise to Michael Penix that he suffered very late in the game when Tate Batoon was tackling him, and he is walking gingerly on that last drive and towards the end of the game, post game. So that's going to be something to watch, that the Falcons hope won't be too serious and won't linger throughout the rest of the season. And if it does linger throughout the rest of the season, then expect a little bit of Kirk Cousins to step in. So overall for this game, a nice team effort from the 49ers from this game. And you're going to be expecting a lot of team effort from San Francisco as the season rolls on, as they hopefully try to get more guys back in the lineup. So now we move on to week 8 as the 49ers begin a 2-game road swing that starts in Houston against the Texans. So looking at the Texans, they currently stand at 2, and they had a bye week. They entered that bye week 2-3, and they came out of the bye week going into a Monday night matchup against the Seattle Seahawks on the road. And unfortunately, they fell behind 14-0. And while their defense forced four turnovers on Sam Darnold in that offense, including a sack fumble touchdown by Will Anderson in the end zone, they just couldn't get a comeback going from CJ Stroud, as they fell 27-19, and they fell to 2-4 on the season. So the Texans that you saw from the last 2 seasons, it's just not there. It is non-existent on this team currently. A lot of that has to do with either injuries or bad roster construction, especially to multiple key areas. mainly on the offense, mind you. You're looking at a lot of injuries at the receiving core, notably to Tank Dell, and some in and out from Nico Collins, as well as the offensive line, which is both a mix of key injuries and bad roster construction. But you also have a very solid defense there, though. But and I would say overall this Texans team, it's just like this is a team where it's just where are they going right now? It's just of what are they trying to improve on. So looking at the players to watch for this team, obviously for the 49ers, as they begin this 2-game road trip that starts in Houston and ends in the big bad blue side of New York against the Giants, which we'll talk about next week. But we talk about Houston first. For the 49ers, obviously all eyes will still be looking at Tate Bethune, the linebacker replacing Fred Warner. He had a good start. Being the new signal caller on defense, the green dot guy with 10 tackles, some of which were key tackles for the 49ers defense. Now he has to follow that up against slightly or more decent quarterback. I mean, not to downplay Michael Penix, but a more proven quarterback in CJ Stroud. And then you have to also look out for whichever quarterback is going to start, which is more likely going to be Mac Jones again. So Mac Jones has to play a little bit better this week because obviously he did bounce back in week 7, but he's got to get a little bit more involved in this week because it can't just be the Christian McCaffrey show. For the Houston Texans, CJ Stroud, that's a player to watch. He hasn't exactly done well this season. Maybe he's just been either the supporting cast or it's also been a mix of himself. CJ Stroud has been I'd say he's had a lot of bad decision making, like holding on to the ball too long to the point he gets sacked, or he's making a lot of errant throws where he turns it over. So Stroud, I feel like regardless of all the bad things that he has done in the season, whether it's by choice or not by choice, I feel like this is a game that he can finally, at least for this game, break the mold of all the bad things that have happened so far, and out of a whim can go ham on a Niners defense that is missing 2 and now 3 of its key players on defense, and just go ham on a youthful, inexperienced secondary. Speaking of defense, we look at Will Anderson the fourth, the Texans' top defensive player in the pass rush. Will Anderson is a really good player who is also drafted in the same back-to-back with CJ Stroud 2 years ago. And yeah, this is one of the top pass rushers in the NFL. And especially given with the state of the 49ers offensive line, I feel like if the 49ers can't pass protect Mac Jones well, then I feel like Will Anderson will have a field day against this offensive line, no matter who he's going up against, whether it's Trent Williams or Colin McKivitz. Now, looking at the injury report for both of these teams, starting with my 49ers, speaking of that third top player that's going to be missing on defense, Bryce Huff. Bryce Huff did well in that Falcons game, but unfortunately, he is going to be missing a couple weeks with a hamstring injury, which came out of the blue on Monday. That injury news came out of the blue, out of nowhere. But John Lynch clarified that Thursday. It just suddenly happened on the second to last play in the Atlanta game, which was unfortunate. It was just like a sudden injury. So yeah, injury mania continues to run wild on the 49ers defense. So it also depletes the 49ers pass rush even more, because what do you even have left? What do you even have left on the 49ers pass rush? Like, if anything, I know, I get it. They signed Robert Beal. They moved him up to the active roster, but if they for how much they sign and released and re-signed Robert Beal to the practice squad. It just like, do you trust this man? Do you trust this man to go out there and make a play? Maybe he can finally step up, but I don't know. I just don't know. Maybe I'm doubting too much. But regardless, if they're down 3 of their top defensive players, mainly especially in the front 7, the urgency to make a move for one, but maybe now 2 guys, to trade for 2 guys for the front 7. The urgency goes way up. It goes way up for John Lynch. They have to look at the market right now. And while I don't think it should cost a first round pick, because, well, look how that turned out. Look how that turned out 3 years ago. No, where are we? 2025? No, 4 years ago. Look how that turned out 4 years ago. With the 2021 draft. I wouldn't go that far with a first round pick. Maybe a low 3rd round pick, like a late 3rd round pick, day three pick. Try to find something out there, and hopefully a young person, or I don't know. Either way, the urgency to get 1 or 2 guys in the pass rush, especially, that urgency goes way up. It goes way up for John Lynch now. Starting center Jake Brendel is also gonna miss time with also hamstring injury. He had the injury late in the 3rd quarter, but again, as I mentioned, Matt Hennessy felt like an upgrade over him in both all departments of the offensive line. And if he continues to play well, I feel like he can overtake Jake Brendel as the starting center, regardless of Kyle and John's hard on and their comments about Jake Brendel. Looking at some of the other injuries, Ronaldo Green, he left the Falcons game with a toe injury, never came back, but he was able to practice this week, and he may play. So it's a good sign. Kyle Shanahan confirmed that it wasn't turf toe that Brock Purdy has too. So that's a major good sign. Diamador Lenore, he had a quad contusion. So not like a quad tear, a quad strain. So I guess that's also good news. And he, from what I'm seeing on socials, from various beat writers, that he may play this week too. Someone that isn't going to play this week though is Ricky Pearsall. He's not expected to play with his knee injury, and I'm not sure what's going on with that. Neither Kyle nor John have been getting any promising updates on the injury, so that's getting very alarming for Pearsall. And some of them are calling him injury prone. I'm not ready to call him that just yet. But it's still unfortunate that this receiving core is so depleted that we kind of need Ricky Pearsall at the moment. But right now, fans have to hope that at this point that Jordan Watkins will play, and I don't think Kyle Shanahan has a choice to put Jordan Watkins, make him active on game days if he's fully healthy. I mean, wasn't he this week? And they gotta hope that Jacob Cowning, one of their kind of breakout receivers last year, is ready to go, and so is Brandon Ayuk eventually. Mac Jones, as I mentioned, is in line to start this week, despite Brock Purdy looking pretty good in practices in the last 2 weeks. But again, as I said last week, Kyle Shanahan probably learned the lesson for once on some things, and just not rushing Brock Purdy back. He wants to make sure that he's fully healthy to go. Meanwhile, for the Texans, they don't have a lengthy injury report like us, but they could be without 2 of their starting receivers. Nico Collins, he suffered a concussion during the Seattle game, and as of right now, as I'm recording this, he has not yet practiced. And even if he did practice on Friday, which this episode is coming out, by the way, he still have to pass concussion protocol to play. So it is up in the air if Nico Collins is going to practice. And Christian Kirk, the other second top receiver, he's also not been practicing with the hamstring injury. So yeah, if he does practice on Friday, he might have a shot to play. But as it stands, he is not yet currently practicing. And if both of those guys are out, then spells trouble for CJ Stroud. So looking at the keys to victory for both of these teams, for my 49ers, they got to find, once again, more options in the front four. Bryce Hupp, like I said, expects to miss a few games, which leaves Robert Saleh with a very young, yet very inexperienced front four, especially at the edge. Michael Williams has had his moments getting to the quarterback, but just not quite there yet as a pure pass rusher. So that leaves Robert Beal Jr., who has been sort of a bust, given that he's been signed, released, re-signed to the practice squad for how many times this season. But in my fairness, that he hasn't really had much of a chance to prove himself in real meaningful playtime, at least from what I've seen. I don't know if you have, but that's just me. So, but then again, I'm not sure what other options there are, like especially at the edge. Like now I'm not talking about the interior because they're pretty set there. I mean, even with how inexperienced Alfred Collins and CJ West are, but it's like, what are options? What's the other options out there right now? Because given that teams aren't rolling flyers for their players yet for the trade deadline, Saleh just has to work with what he has right now, unfortunately. And then offensively, you got to continue running the Christian McCaffrey train. But I would like to see the passing offense. I would like to see them get going, because for as many as Houston's offense is, their defense is more middle of the pack. And they could hunt down Christian McCaffrey and pretty much limit him. And that has to make Kyle Shanahan wonder, maybe I have to start getting the passing game going. And speaking of that middle of the pack defense, they could also pressure Mac Jones too. So Kyle has to scheme up some ways for Mac Jones to, get the passing game going. Connect with Kendrick Bourne like he did against the Rams and the Bucks. And now that George Kittle is back, try to factor him in too with Mac Jones. So you want to throw the Texans off as many ways you can, not just with Christian McCaffrey though, but with a variety of options. Meanwhile, for the Houston Texans, you got to find your own receiving options, because if Christian Kirk or Nico Collins or both miss this game, this is going to be placed with even more emphasis, because they don't have Tank Dell for the year, I'm assuming, because of that brutal injury late last year. CJ Stroud would have to rely on the likes of Dalton Schultz, Xavier Hutchinson, Jane Higgins, and a bunch more to be a young 49ers pass defense. So they got to find some reliable receiving options for CJ Stroud. And then the Texans have to finish red zone drives. They got to score touchdowns in the end zone. I get it. The Seahawks defense was good, but the Stroud in the offense, they were trying to make a comeback, even though it was pretty much too late to do so. But they still had multiple chances to come back in that game. But whenever they were in the end zone, near the end zone, they were in that red area, they failed every time. Now, the 49ers red zone defense, it's not as imposing as Seattle's, but the Texans still can't leave touchdowns off the board, let alone not even field goals. But the main priority is CJ Stroud in the offense. They have to make sure whenever they're in the red area, when they're near the end zone, make sure they strike in the end zone with the touchdown. Nothing more, nothing less. They have to get a touchdown on the board every time they're there against a defense that will be lacking a pass rush. Simple as that. So overall, there's a lot for both teams to be fighting for this weekend. And yeah, for my 49ers, it's another one of those weeks where you got to grind out a victory against, I won't necessarily call the Texans weak, because they have their own things to fight for too, as they try to salvage their season, especially in an AFC South division that, some people perceive as weak, but not really. At least with the top two teams over right now with the Colts and the Jaguars. But for the 49ers, they have to continue to grind out victories until some parts of the team, if not most of it, gets fully healthy. they try to control what they can control right now with the injuries, and hopefully try to not have any major injuries by the end of the game. So, yeah, what do you guys think about this team and how they're heading into this Week 8 matchup against the Houston Texans? Let me know in the comments below on YouTube, or slide into my DMs on social media at Very Cold Lasagna, whether it's on Twitter or on Instagram at Very Cold Lasagna. Let's have a conversation about it, and yeah, let's hope that the 49ers grind out another win against Houston as we approach near the midway point and they begin this 2-game road trip. But anyway, that's going to do it for this episode of the Very Cold Lasagna podcast, bringing you more filthy casual takes on the world of sports. This is episode number 296 and the 7th edition of the Red and Gold Weekly Roundup here on the podcast. I have been your host, Dylan Lasagna. Thank you for letting me into your ears, and keep that lasagna very cold in the fridge with your filthy casual takes on the world of sports. And until I see you, when I see you in the next one, peace out.